So we have read Black Boy by Richard Wright. Did you enjoy reading Black Boy by Richard Wright?
Yes.
Yeah. We know that he had some pretty rough experiences, didn't he? One thing he experienced, and I think it affected him throughout his life, was hunger. Denotation. What is denotation? Octavius, what's meant by denotation?
Denotation is sort of like the definition or the meaning of the word.
Mm-hmm. Where do you get that? Where does that come from?
Dictionary.
Yeah, from the dictionary. So if we were to look up hunger in the dictionary, we might see something like what, Michaela?
Desire.
Desire for something, right? But what if we wanted to think about hunger, for example, in terms of what it means or what it feels like? What term do we use to describe that? It's sort of like the opposite of denotation. Say it louder. Yeah, connotation. So we're going to examine hunger today as an idea that sort of resonates throughout Black Boy. Today's class was the first in a series of lessons centered around close reading passages from Richard Wright's 1945 literary nonfiction piece, Black Boy. Let's take a look at this passage. Now, I'm going to read this passage aloud, and then you're going to spend just a few minutes reading it silently to yourselves. And as you read it silently to yourselves, you're going to annotate the text, okay? Close reading is a slowing down. It's not a hurried rush to get through the text. It is a deliberate slowing down so that students can derive deeper meanings of the things that they read. It calls for students to focus in on words and phrases. It pushes them to clarify their thinking. And it also pushes them to look for meaning in the words that they read. Anything we say about this book, or this passage rather, we're going to point to evidence, proof in the text to back up what we say, our claims or our beliefs, okay? So we must have the proof.
I know the two things from the passage. It says hunger kept me on edge.
Mm-hmm.
So what I thought was that hunger motivated him to do things in his life. Like anything that he do has to do with hunger.
What is it that he can be so certain that he knows? What is it that he can be so certain that he knows?
Like everything that he did was because of hunger. Like when he turned the faucet on highly and let the water cascade in his mouth so he can feel full for a moment.
So that word is there, cascade into my what?
Stomach.
So that's your textual evidence. That is your textual evidence to support your answer. Okay, that's exactly what I want to know. So why does Richard not want to share his vanilla wafers with anyone?
He didn't want to share them because he was hungry. And it was a craving to him. So who would want to share them?
Can you tell me specifically in the text what you would use to support that answer?
It say, hunger that created me odd cravings. No food that I could dream of seeing half so utterly delicious as vanilla wafers.
But on down from there, he talks about being alone and eating these vanilla wafers and not wanting to share with anyone. Why does he do that?
Well, it said he walked back from the corner store with the vanilla wafers slowly.
Slowly. So that word, slowly, suggests what?
Stalling time so he could eat them quicker without sharing with no one.
Yeah. What is it like when you eat something and you savor it? Don't you pause for a moment to kind of just enjoy that? Yeah. Is that what Richard is experiencing here? With the word slowly, and he describes it that way? So let's talk about effect. What effect, Antoinette, does the author create when he twice uses this word craving? Because it comes up twice. Craving. We know what a craving is if we look the word up in the dictionary, but what is the connotative meaning, Travis, of craving?
It say he would sit on the front step and dream of eating another box. The craving would finally become so acute that I would force myself to be active in order to forget it.
Which word in that just that part of the text that you just quoted is probably the strongest besides craving?
Acute.
Acute. Yeah. Why do you think that is so strong?
Because it mean like when he said he had the craving for something, it came acute. It mean like it made him want another one, and like it became real.
For the next few minutes, you're going to work individually in your groups, and you're each going to answer one question and discuss it as a group. I know that as a teacher, I'm always reflective about my practice, and so I know that we will have to do a little bit more work in terms of having students to further back up their claims and talk a little bit more about why they chose a particular piece of textual evidence. All right, Octavius, Jaleesa, and Joshua, you guys addressed this idea of hunger sort of moving through this passage. How does it move through the passage?
Each time the hunger get more severe, it's like his emotions grow with it. So it's like each time he uses it, it gets severe. That's what I said, but it just gets severe.
And so, Jaleesa, what textual evidence did your group talk about? Or Joshua, either one of you could answer. Joshua, yeah.
I textual evidence is the first sentence where it said, once again I knew hunger, biting hunger, hunger that made my body aimless, restless, hunger that kept me on the edge, that made my temper flare, hunger that made hate leap out of my heart like the dart of a simple tongue, hunger that created the old grave.
And so not only is there repetition, but there is a sort of movement from the beginning to the end, how it gets to be more and more extreme. I want you all to now pick up your copy of Black Boy and turn to page 161. 161. Summer. Follow along with me, please. Summer, bright, hot days. Hunger still a vital part of my consciousness. Passing relatives in the hallways of the crowded home and not speaking. Eating in silence at a table where prayers are said. My mother recovering slowly, but now definitely crippled for life. I chose Black Boy by Richard Wright because it offers the level of text complexity that my students need to meet the demands of the Common Core state standards. There's so much richness there. It gives due diligence to what I want my students to get from the text and from this sort of analysis and this kind of work. So he opens up this passage again pretty much with that word hunger. But this time, he's a little older, obviously. This time, is it the same sort of hunger, or is he desiring something else?
I really think it's for something else because what he's talking about dealing with money and the well-being of his mother and the home that she's in. So hunger is, I wouldn't say resolve this quite, because now it's just like his motive. It's still his motive, but it's like mentally now.
And what evidence from this passage can you point out for supporting your claim?
Well, I'm gonna like skip a little bit, but he opened up with hungry. Then like the end, he says, "My friends are buying long pants suits that cost for $17 to $20. A sum as huge to me as the Alps. This was my reality in 1924."
How do you know that what you're saying textually supports your answer?
Because what I was saying was dealing with money, and what he's saying is dealing with money because of things he can't afford. So I was applying that to like the housing and the places he have to go, but he can't because of his mom.
I have here on the board for you a picture of a painting that was done by an artist by the name of Jacob Lawrence. Richard Wright published this book in 1945. Jacob Lawrence produced this work of art between 1940 and 1941, so the time is pretty close. You also have a copy of it in front of you so that you can see a little bit more detail. And I want you to think about the image here in this painting. This painting has a story. Jacob Lawrence is telling us something, but he's also leaving out some things, so some things that we don't know, okay? What do we see here in this painting? Is this family in want of food? No. Jaleesa, you say this family is not in want of food. How do you know they're not in want of food?
Because she's cutting bacon.
Okay. Is this family in want of healthy food, Jaleesa?
Yes.
How do you know that, or why do you say that? Look at the text of that. Well, this painting is a text itself. It's a visual text. It has a story. It's telling us something. But what's your evidence for that?
Okay, she's cutting the bacon, but bacon's like fat. So you can't see anything else on the table but bacon. So
And Octavius wants to support what you're saying. Go ahead, Octavius.
The boy standing there, just waiting on his mom to cook it. I'll say they're not used to having food, so bacon is the only thing that they have at the moment.
How can you tell that they're not used to having food?
If you're used to food, you wouldn't be right there watching your mom at every step. Just cut. She's cutting it. She's not even cooking it yet. She's just cutting it.
So there's this anticipation.
Yeah, he's just waiting.
Let's clue in on the boy's facial expression.
Well, the boy seems very wide-eyed and curious because perhaps he's never had that much food.
Okay. And you're saying that much food because what's your evidence in the text for that much food?
It appears like a huge bundle of bacon.
It's a huge slab of bacon, isn't it?
Judging by his weight, they don't really eat much. So that's probably why he's just standing there, just waiting.
Maybe there was no bacon last night, but there's some bacon today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I
It
see
looks
what
kind
you-
of scrawny.
On the board, I've listed the letters in an acronym: overview, parts, title text, interrelationships, and conclusions. This acronym is good for analyzing a visual text. When we talk about overview, we're basically asking you to think about what the image is about, okay? And I'm going to give you a handout about this in just a moment. Parts is where we start to talk about or think about the parts of the image or the painting in terms of colors, forms, details, okay? Title and text, we know the title, and text has to deal with those things you've already kind of been talking about, knowing that this young boy has a sense of expectation, expression of expectation on his face, that there's this huge piece of, or slab of bacon there that may not be the healthiest food, but it's something to eat. There's a want there nonetheless. Interrelationships, what's the relationship between the mom slicing the bacon in the presence of the child? Okay, what's the relationship between that? And then what kinds of conclusions can we make? So we're actually going to use Optic to help us prepare for a writing task that I want to talk about very briefly, because we want to show that Richard Wright and Jacob Lawrence share something in common in terms of their how Richard Wright presents the idea of hunger and how Jacob Lawrence depicts it through visual art. The writing task calls for students to analyze how artists, whether a literary artist or a visual artist, presents or depicts hunger and want in their artistic work. For closure, let's quickly have volunteers to share out what you learned today.
I learned that hunger wasn't just a part of just Richard's life, but other people early on before his time. And hunger made him determined to do more in his life, or it made him have a dream, or, crave more things other than just what he had in front of him.
I learned how to analyze the text of a painting by using the acronym OPTIC.
I think that it is important to recognize the value of the Common Core state standards. I appreciate that there is such a focus on explicitly referring to text and explicitly diving into text, because it's so important for helping our students to foster those kinds of skills that they need for the world of work and for college. So really, for me, it's a very refreshing time to be an English teacher, because these standards are paving the way for some really great and awesome opportunities in our English classrooms.